Hi guys, it's Miss Lisa and I'm back on the porch today with a book called Extra Yarn by Mark Barnett and illustrated by John Klassen. And you might recognize his illustrations because we have read a couple books already by him. This is one of the books where with his pictures. This is one of those books where the picture is the same from the cover. So I'm taking it off because that makes it a little easier for me to read to you. Extra Yarn. Let me make sure we're adjusted here. It's another long book. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town, where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn in every single color. So she went home and she knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars, her dog. But there was still yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You're just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. Look what she did. And even after she made a sweater for Nate and his dog and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet," said Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone. Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Well, then I'll knit one for everyone," said Annabelle. "This way they don't have to turn around." "Impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't do that." But it turned out she could. So she did. Even one for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she made sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters, or even long pants, and who would stand in shorts with the snow up to his knees. "No sweater for me, thanks," he said. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat, and even then Annabelle still had some extra yarn. So she made sweaters for all the dogs and the cats and for all of the other animals too. Some people thought soon Annabelle will be out of yarn, but it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. Do you see that? For the house, and the bird house, the mailbox. Look at the whole town. Things began to change in that little town. It sure is a lot more colorful. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day an Archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. "Little girl," said the Archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1,000,000. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The Archduke's mustache twitched. $2,000,000, he said. Annabelle shook her head. "No, thanks." "10,000,000, shouted the Archduke. "Take it or leave it." "Leave it," said Annabelle. "I won't sell the yarn." And she didn't. So that night, the Archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And they stole the box, and they took it to the Archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea, back to his castle. The Archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair, and then he took out the box, and he lifted its lid, and he looked inside. What do you notice? His mustache quivered. It shivered. It trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again." But hold on. It's a new book, so the pages are sticking. It turned out she was happy. There they all are on the tree. Ah, extra yarn. So when I first read that book, I had two thoughts. I wondered first, did Annabelle take the yarn out because she knew that the Archduke was going to try and take it? Or did she leave it be and just when he took it, there just was no yarn for the Archduke? Those were the things I was wondering after I first read Extra Yarn. All right, I'm Lisa Murphy, and I'll be back later with another Porch Time story time for you. Bye-bye.